Namaskar. We welcome you to our overall well-being series. We have Dr. Marcus Rane, who is the champion of well-being. He is the founder and CEO of Human Edge Enterprises. From sick care to well-being, Dr. Marcus Rane's career journey over the past 2 decades have led him from the patient's bedside to a wider stage as he now creates global impact via systemic change. Completing his Bachelor's of Science in Medical degrees from University College Medical School in London, his passion for extreme physiology has allowed him to conduct field research across the planet, with expeditions taking him to the sides of Everest, skiing in the Arctic and the European Alps. He has served as a medical officer in the Royal Air Force and at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. After practicing clinical medicine in London in 2010, he made the transition to Mumbai, where he has worked within the healthcare and life sciences industry as a strategic advisor, investor, and operator for a range of MNC and national bellwether firms. Augmenting his contributions towards global health commentary, the COVID 19 pandemic has brought Marcus back to the front lines of medicine as a medical volunteer for his city's fight against controlling the virus. A published author, keynote speaker, digital talk show host, and public health commentator, he has been a World Economic Forum's global shaper and is currently a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council working on a project exploring the relationships between the climate crisis and global health. A champion of well-being, Marcus is a big believer that sustainably improving the lives of billions of people the world over can only be brought about by enhancing the positive aspects of health rather than focusing solely on pathogenesis and disease. Marcus is a keen athlete and a long distance marathon runner. He holds a Guinness World Record for running backwards, and he thoroughly enjoys being a father to his 2 young children. I welcome you, sir. Please share your journey with us.
Firstly, I'm actually living in Mumbai, in Bombay right now. So I think we're in the same country at least. I sort of take this title as champion of well-being. My journey, for those of whom are familiar with my work, has really been one where I started in sick care as a medical practitioner, as a clinical doctor, and now I focus my work very much on well-being. In promoting and augmenting the best version of ourselves that we can be. At my heart, I am a biology geek. I absolutely love human physiology, and I've had the great favor and opportunity to enjoy and learn about this organic machine that we have by nature, this body in some of the most extreme environments around the planet. And now my latest venture, Human Edge, really takes all of those applications of human performance and, more importantly, longevity, and creates it in a biohackable program that we can each apply to our own lives.
That's really awesome. So, can you share some more information about the Human Edge, your new book, which is available on Amazon?
Absolutely. So it's a best-selling book in India. I'm very pleased to say that. It's available on all of the online platforms, including Kindle, as well. It is now globally available in terms of its in terms of publications around the world. The book really looks at our body, that subject which I love so much. And through the chapters, I take the reader on a journey around the world, visiting some of the most extreme environments, from climbing Mount Everest to deep diving in the Mariana, to surviving in the Sahara, to running a marathon, going to the South Pole, and even sending an astronaut to Mars. And in this extravagant, extreme backdrop of space and physical geography, we take a journey inward into ourselves and study what happens to our own biology when it's pushed to the extreme, the way our machinery adapts and then really begins to excel and really allows us to live life at the human edge.
That's really awesome, sir. So after your studies in London, what did you do? What brought you to India? How was your transition? How did that happen?
I followed a girl and it ended up really good. She and I are now married. We have two wonderful children, a 5-year-old son called Aiden and my little daughter who will be 3 soon. And that's why I'm here. So there's an element of romance there.
That's lovely to know. So you have evolved over the years from sick care to well-being. As you mentioned, how did that transition happen?
I mean, I was always interested my central passion has always been human physiology, right? Clinical medicine allowed me to practice that, but in a very different paradigm, sick care, which is just the way the systems are designed, right? Doctors, we call ourselves healthcare experts, but there's very little health in our care. It's mainly focused on pathogenesis, disease, symptomatic treatment, and in some instances, curative treatment as well. I increasingly found myself frustrated with this particular paradigm, and I went on my own internal search for being the best version that I could be. And over the last 15, 20 years, it's brought me to where I am today. Now, the problem I solve is at its sort of atomic level, it's behavioral science. It's how can I convince someone, or how can the platform that we build and deploy convince someone to do something today that will help lead to dividends in the future, right? Something we're really bad at doing, human beings. We discount long-term gain versus short-term gratitude and gratification, rather. So this is the problem which we're solving for. It's a problem around human longevity. It's a problem around peak performance. And really, I consider myself as a biohacker, thinking about all the little things that I can tweak in the day that allows me to be the most productive, the most healthy, the most happy version of myself. And through the process now, templatizing and scaling that allows everyone else to do the same as well.
That's really awesome. And how do you do that on a daily basis? Can you give us a few tips or ideas? How do you follow well-being on a daily basis?
So there are many different levers that I focus my energies on, and these are things including sleep, including how I fuel my body, not just what I eat, but when I eat and how I eat as well, both macronutrient and micronutrient. I'm a big believer and practitioner of intermittent fasting and the benefits that creates at a cellular level in terms of autophagy. Then, of course, I look at exercise and the role of movement in our day, not only the physical benefits of doing so, but how it improves our mental health, how it improves our emotional capabilities, as well. I mean, there's just so many different levers which we try and control for. And the thing I always tell people is it just takes one. You just need to start small, but you need to start today. So every day through our programs that we now work with over 30 major corporations in 16 countries around the world, we basically promote the idea that you do just one thing every day that will bump you in the right direction. And that's sort of the fundamental philosophy of how we design our digital programs and our engagement programs.
That's really awesome to know. Everybody should get a chance to be on your program and get all the services that you're providing to come back to a state of well-being. That would be really awesome when that happens. So where are these corporate programs that you're talking about? How do you approach people? You approach corporations directly or people approach you? How does that happen?
No, right now we work with corporations. It's an enterprise model. It's almost a software as a service. We have an entire digital product suite that large organizations can sign up for their employee base, and then employees become participants in our programs. Over the next year or so, we will be introducing new product features that the participants can access directly from our platform without the need of their corporate partner to be involved as well. So shifting from a B2B towards a B2C type of model. So that's where we're currently at.
That's great to know. Can you please explain what do you mean by positive healthcare aspects? Are you envisioning a disease-free planet for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest disease of all is aging. Aging is a disease. It's something that 70–80% of us, even more, when you look at it at a global level, suffer from. But it's a disease. We don't think about aging as a disease because we think of it as a natural consequence of our life on this planet. But there are cellular changes which happen to us, which can be mitigated and in some instances reversed as well. So I really start at that paradigm and then go down the different layers, whether that's the metabolic syndromes, whether that's the cardiovascular health, whether that's oncology and cancer, whether it's neurodegenerative disorders around the brain and central and peripheral nervous system, etc. All of them centrally come from a very similar mechanistic change that happens in the body, involving really only 6 or 7 key parameters: inflammation being one, mitochondrial dysfunction being another, senescent cells being a third, the accumulation of gunk, of protein junk inside of us being a fourth, atrophy being the fifth, etc., etc. So there are these 7 to 9 hallmarks of aging, which can be mitigated and, as I said, in some instances reversed. So that's the disease that I'm tackling.
That's awesome to know. So as this is a well-being series, I would like to ask you, what is your concern related to well-being for the planet at the moment?
So when I constructed how I wanted to invest my time, I really decided that there were going to be 3 elements that I would be focusing my energies on in a concentric circle. The first is the well-being of individual people, right? Similar to what you and I were just discussing. Yeah. The second is the well-being of the organization, of the team. And that is what we do with our corporate programs, where we work with large organizations and companies at an organizational level to drive change. And the third is the well-being of the system. And in that, I include climate crisis, I include global health, planetary health, etc. So there are some sub-themes in there. I spend a lot of my time as a public health commentator. I've been a frontline medic through this war with COVID-19. My wife and I, we've started a social enterprise called Meds for More in India, where we collect unused medicines and then we redistribute that for free. And in the last 2 months alone, we've collected more than a ton of medicines and helped more than 100,000 patients across the country, giving them free medicines for COVID relief. So that's one element of work that I do. The second, of course, is on the planetary side, climate crisis. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I really started researching this, and I wrote a paper with the relationship between the climate crisis and our health. You see, a lot of people consider climate change, now called the climate crisis, as this esoteric problem that happens to the environment alone and may not impact us. But I remind people, and I think COVID is a prime example, how a virus has been created, amplified by nature due to man-human conflict, due to rising temperatures, etc., etc. This is just one indication of how this climate crisis can affect our health. So whether it's respiratory health, whether it's cardiovascular health because of heat waves and the rising temperature, whether it's because of ocean acidification and pollutants in the water table, whether it's because of mental health challenges, because of huge physical traumas by forest fires, by landslides, by floods, by earthquakes, volcanoes, etc. The impact of climate crisis is fundamentally on us as human beings. Nature will survive. This planet will go on. We may not. So this is a health crisis in the making. It's not just an environmental crisis.
I agree with you completely on that. In one sense, we're actually trying to save mankind, not environment or the planet, because nature is going to take care of herself, like you rightly said. So with such a big crisis on our hands, such as environment crisis that you just mentioned, and so many things going on around, what can we as an individual do, every person out there? What do you suggest we can do to take care of ourselves through well-being, to take care of our family, to take care of the people who are around us, and to take care of the environment, which is again taking care of ourselves? What should your advice be for that?
Yeah, so across all three spectrums of those circles, the fundamental pragmatic prescription is always the same, which is these biohacks: start small and start today. So very specifically, when it comes to this area of the climate crisis, we're each in a high degree of control. We can do simple things like eat locally, which is to buy produce which is produced locally and consumed locally. So the carbon footprint of that produce is as minimal as possible. Some people even grow things on their balcony, so you don't even need to have large plots of land. You can have a terrace garden. Most buildings have a terrace on the top. You can even grow small herbs and plants, etc., on that. So that's the first thing you can do. The second is to avoid meat. The contribution of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and water consumption from meat versus plant-based proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, etc., is in the order of 14 to 15x, sometimes even higher than that. So we should get rid of meat out of our diets completely. The second thing is to walk more, use less vehicles. I've got a bicycle. If I've got a 2-3 kilometer errand that I need to run, we don't take the car, we take the bicycle around. My wife does the same as well. So, use public transport or use your bicycles or just walk. It's good for you. It's good for the environment as well. I mean, there's so many little things. Don't use antibiotics. When you have a flu, like COVID is a prime example, 80% of patients who come and consult with me have already been started on either doxycycline, ivermectin, azithromycin, augmentin, etc. None of these have any benefit in COVID-19. COVID is a viral illness. Unless you have a secondary bacterial infection, none of this is going to cause any benefit. But what you're doing is you're creating the possibility of enhanced antibiotic resistance. And believe me, in the next 10 years, that is going to probably become the single biggest killer across mankind. We're already seeing huge strains in bacteria, in fungi, in protozoa, etc., which are resistant to the agents that we have available to us. And the more we consume these inappropriately, the worse it gets. So there's so many things, simple things that each of us can do starting today, but can lead to dividends over a period of a lifetime.
What you've just shared with me is it's alarming to a great extent, because when we come to know that the antibiotics that we are taking is actually going to prove to be harmful to us in the longer future, how do we protect ourselves? I mean, when we go to a doctor, we are prescribed those medicines and we take it. How do you create, or how do we create awareness in ourselves not to do this? What do you suggest for the people out there?
Let's understand that the blame is on both sides, right? Patients go to the doctor expecting something in return. Oftentimes, if a patient sees a doctor and the doctor says, you don't need to take anything, the patient will say, oh, this doctor doesn't know what she or he is talking about. Let me go and see another doctor, right? There's a pressure on the doctor to prescribe something, and vice versa. There's an incentive on the practitioner to prescribe something. So the fault is the system. It's not on any one party in the system. But the benefit is that we as individual patients can, number one, not ask our doctor for a medicine that we don't require. Number two is, if we prescribe something that, like I just shared, there is not a single antibiotic which has got any benefit or use in COVID-19. So if you have it, don't take it, right? Just say to your doctor, it's okay, I don't need anything for now. There are only 2 or 3 medicines which have got any proven benefits, which are now publicly available on the Ministry of Health of India's public on their website. But there is no antibiotic utilization in there as well. So let's understand that this is a multi-systemic issue, but each of us is a stakeholder and has a responsibility in that, and can therefore play our own part.
Wow. Thank you very much for sharing that information with us. Coming from a doctor like you, this actually makes a lot of sense, and for the people who are there out there. we should take responsibility for our own health. We shouldn't go to the doctors and expect them to be gods. That's what you're actually saying, and you're completely true on that. So last question I would like to ask you for today is, what message would you like to give to everyone out there today?
Self-care and self-love is not selfish. I think that's the big realization we've each had because of the COVID pandemic and the global lockdown. Companies, individuals, countries, the entire planet is now looking towards well-being as being our savior to get us out of this. We thank the scientists and all the healthcare professionals in every single country on earth for the hard work that they've done in getting us to a point to be able to bring back control into our system. But we as individual people have to play our part as well. Our world cannot afford for 8 billion passengers. We need 8 billion engaged stakeholders, each of which are willing and energized to play their part in this world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Marcus, today. It's been a real pleasure and honor having us on our series of overall well-being. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Stay well, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.